Hi, good afternoon. First and foremost, would you mind introducing yourself and a little bit about your executive career?
So my name is Mike Potter. I've spent over 20 years leading technology and transformation organizations, mostly in the public sector, also in the private sector as well. My most recent role was as Government Chief Digital Officer, so leading technology, transformation, artificial intelligence adoption, cyber and many other things for UK government. And now I work as an independent advisor and a digital NED.
Brilliant. So can you maybe tell us a little bit more about why you decided to go down the advisory and sort of non-executive route?
Well, all through my career, my life really, I've had a strong focus on doing things that impact people's lives in a positive way. I've got the opportunity to do that in 20 years in the public sector in a range of roles. I wanted to continue to do that, and these kind of roles give me the opportunity to keep doing things that have a positive social impact.
Would you mind giving us an idea as to how you feel the role of an advisor, or the role of that sort of digital non-exec, differs within the public sector compared to either a listed or a privately owned business?
Sure. So I think the public sector to some extent has led the way in encouraging or even mandating having digital NEDs on the boards of all the various public sector organisations. They've predominantly sought to bring people from outside the public sector, from outside government, seeking to bring new insights, new perspectives, new experience, but particularly bringing people in from customer-focused organisations, recognising the public sector needs to strengthen that aspect. The challenge for people coming outside into government is that they don't often know how government works and how to get things done and how Whitehall operates. And I think what you see is a strong partnership between the digital leader and the digital NED, where they help those individuals to navigate, to know how to operate the levers of power and influence in Whitehall. In return, the digital NED acts much more as a kind of force multiplier, helping the digital leader to deliver breakthrough results in different public sector organisations. And what I've seen is a very strong partnership operating that way, recognising that each brings mutual strengths to the relationship, and those are the ones that work best.
Okay, and so if you were to, again, sort of drill down a little bit there, so what do you think is the core difference then, and how do you think that varies compared to the private sector?
I think the core difference is that in the private sector, I think quite often I see digital NEDs they've got sector experience and context, so they're expected to go to a utility or retailer and know the industry, know the market, know what's happening in that environment. Actually, what the public sector has done is look for people who don't understand government. They bring people in who do know how to deliver great customer service, great experiences. They want to bring in people who have got applied kind of retail ideas into the public sector to fundamentally transform how it operates. So they're looking for innovative ideas. They're looking for concepts that work in the private sector to be read across, but from very different sectors. So it's really a way of opening up the set of possibilities that the public sector can pursue in the way it applies and delivers technology. As I say, the challenge for those people is having the people who can help them navigate to actually have a positive impact, because working in the public sector, it can be extremely intimidating and complicated for NEDs, but if they partner in the right way, they absolutely get the opportunity to bring great ideas, proven practices, novel and emergent technologies, and see them introduced in a positive way in the public sector.
Would you mind talking to us a little bit about some of the highs and the lows of a role as an advisor or a non-executive? You've obviously had a long-standing career as an executive, but more as that role as an advisor. What's the best and worst that people might experience?
So I think one of the benefits of working in an executive role is that you feel that you're making a positive impact and you see things happen that you shaped and driven. And you don't have that same sense of fulfillment and feedback that you get in a digital NED role. Often what you get, and I've certainly had that, is you work closely with somebody, as often a digital leader, you're often coaching and mentoring them, so helping them to grow. And it's then the impact that they have on others. It's the shaping the environment they're in, it's executing well, it's delivering incredible results. It's also growing themselves and other people, and it's the greatest joy I've got is seeing others flourish and growing and doing that in their organisations. In terms of the downsides, it's kind of the same as it always was in an executive role, is when you get that phone call And that's when somebody tells you that we've got a major outage or there's potentially a cyber issue, or both. It's that sense of dread that you get recognizing you've got a crisis. Now, as a NED, you're not managing the crisis, but clearly what you have done over a period of time is that you're a significant input on strategy, on risk. Effectively, that's both positively growing a business, but also helping prepare for these kind of things. And when they happen, obviously, you're judging yourselves and others are judging you on how you respond. But also, I think you get, in the best situations, you get judged on how you turn that crisis into an opportunity to drive learning and growth and impact in the future. And I think that's kind of been the worst experience, but I always try and turn them into something positive that comes from it afterwards.
How do you differentiate yourself as an advisor or non-exec?
I think there's three things. The first thing is be activist. So the role of the digital NED is changing. It's not just strategy and risk. There's expectations or a need to do everything from assurance to coaching and mentoring and supporting individual leaders. So number one, be absolutely activist, but also make sure that you don't overreach and start trying to manage the business yourself. That's the role of the executive. So being clear on where the boundaries are, but absolutely working and playing up to those boundaries. The second thing is, I think, be relevant. We're in a phase of massively disruptive technology like AI. We've got quantum on the horizon. I think part of the role of a digital NED now, one of the things I always try to bring is help people see to the horizon and understand the role and the impact that technology can have on their business, but also help them understand how they can take advantage of it. And a third thing is, I think, is be progressive. I think the contribution I try to make to any business is more than just be the digital individual. I think contributing across the entirety, the breadth of the organization, whether it's culture, whether it's capability, whether it's customer, have a positive impact on all aspects of the organization. Those are the three things that I think I try to bring.
So if you were to impart some of your advice to that group of people considering moving into a non-exec or an advisory career, how would you advise they differentiate themselves from the crowd to make sure that they get that first foothold in this new career?
Well, I think the most important leadership skill set that I think there is today is be a powerful storyteller. I think that's true if you're in an executive role, because you've got to build belief in shareholders, in your fellow leaders, in your staff, in prospective hires. I think you've got to bring those storytelling skills to bear, because there are lots of great people out there and there are lots of people who can bring the things I've just described. Your ability to tell your story or have others tell your story for you is going to set you apart, because that will create belief and confidence and trust in you to deliver the role that boards and others are looking for. And I think that's the thing I would encourage people to do.
Mike, we're clearly living through uncertain times. There are lots of highly publicized cyber incidents people are talking about that is occupying the minds of retail and consumer-based private or listed businesses. But these are threats that also affect the government and public sector too. Can you give an insight as to what role you have played or you feel should be played by an advisor or a non-executive to provide that, as I said, provide guidance about these new threats that we're facing?
I think an advisor or an NED can play a number of roles. I think firstly is to really bring hard home, if people don't already know, the nature of the threat environment that we face, that it's so much more significant than it has been for all the reasons I think people know. I think the second thing is to make sure that people understand that it's an evolving threat, and therefore cyber resilience and security needs to be something that is continually invested in. It's not something you can just do once and well. I think beyond that, there also has to be bringing to the attention of boards and executives to make sure that they're making the necessary investments in their technology base, in their organizational capabilities, and also I think encouraging them strongly around how they would respond in the event of an incident. There's a real irony that actually you're often judged not by the fact it happened, but by how well you respond to it. And reducing the impact, getting services returned back is particularly important in the public sector, because many of the things we do are life critical. Think about the NHS pathology cyber attack where we couldn't operate pathology labs in London for a while. That has a real impact on people's lives. But the irony of that, of course, is that that's a supply chain. You know, that was something that was outsourced to a third party. And I think a really important role that I've tried to play, and others play, is recognise you can't outsource the risk. So government has now acknowledged this, the new Cybersecurity Act and the new standards and guidelines that are being launched this year are very focused on encouraging, if not mandating, organisations to concentrate on not just judging and managing their own risks, but those of their supply chains as well. The focus is on their technology supply chains, but it absolutely needs to be on their full operational supply chain, because ultimately that's what delivers the service to people. And I think recognising for commercial businesses, of course, it's a commercial imperative that they maintain strong cyber resilience. But for government, the onus is on doing it well because of that absolutely life-critical impact if we get it wrong. The things I've always done, and I think would encourage others to do as well, is put a real onus on the personal accountabilities of board members with regard to things like cybersecurity, that they have, you know, obligations personally as board members, formal obligations to ensure that this stuff is well managed, and the government is strengthening those obligations, akin to kind of consumer product liability legislation. I don't think board members will go to prison if they don't do good cybersec, but I don't think we're that far away from where it could be. That could be the situation. That it's taken so seriously that the onus is there is a legal obligation with criminal consequences if people, for example, know they have cyber risk but don't treat them. So act in a negligent way. And I think that is going to get stronger and stronger in the coming months and years. And I think board members, it's beholden to people like me to make board members aware of their responsibilities in that regard, which I also think will encourage them to take them more seriously as a consequence. And I think that is definitely going to change, if it isn't already. So it's a bit of a bleak ending, but I think the reality is it's that serious that the government eventually, if it isn't already, will legislate to make people take it that seriously. In the same way that you could be disqualified as a CFO if you're seen to have acted in a fraudulent or a negligent way. You could be as a board member for being negligent in terms of managing your cyber risk. And I think that will come.
How likely is it, do you think, that every board will be required to have somebody, at least one person sitting at that board, who has got a technology background, to be... Can you see a future where there is a mandate to have at least one digital non-exec on every board?
100%.
And why?
Well, because we cannot deliver business or public services without core technology capability. We are deeply dependent on technology. Most organisations can't function without it for very long. They can, some can continue to operate in some capacity, but ultimately we're so deeply dependent, the risks are so significant, the threat is so strong and continuously evolving. It's entirely negligent not to have a digital or technology net and somebody with that accountability now. And in due course, that will become, if not best practice, ultimately legislated. But I also think that with that legislation will come very deep obligations around the roles and responsibilities that come with that, potentially enforceable in law. I think this is going to change very significantly in the coming years. And I think I strongly encourage boards to get ahead of that. For all the reasons I've said, it's just good business at this point. Having said that, my peers and my industry needs to evolve so we can lead at that level in that way. We cannot simply be the provider of basic technology services. We have to do much more for our executive and board colleagues than we've historically done. We have to evolve and grow and increase our impact and our credibility to match the need that boards will have. We're going to need both.
Exactly. Yeah, and I think there's a clear realization that the role of a digital non-exec will remain initially or primarily a non-exec. But having that additional string to your bow where you can advise on all things digital, tech, cyber, AI, data, customer
Yeah.
through a technology lens.
Yeah.
It's
You know, if ultimately the only sustainable competitive advantage is innovating more quickly than the competition, most people are doing that through technology. So actually your role as an advisor or a NED becomes not just about running competent services, it becomes about how you actually become the engine and catalyst for continuous innovation to sustain the edge that business may have in the market. That positions you very, very differently. But as I said before, I think to be able to fulfill that role, we are going to have to change and grow. And we're going to have to build confidence and trust in our peers and colleagues on those boards about how we can do our role, contributing more, being great storytellers, being able to speak fluently about the businesses that we operate in, the environments in which we operate. You know, we have to grow too. Hence why I mentioned earlier, I encourage people to think about some of the broader business skills that others have, like the ability to be a powerful storyteller, because I think those are the kind of things that are now going to be, today I think they set you apart. In the future I think they're going to be mandatory minimums in terms of your capability as a leader.